Have you ever wondered why some people start with the same dream as you, but a few years later they have gone so far, while you are still standing almost in the same place? I thought about that question for many years, and I realized a very interesting truth. Success is rarely destroyed by one big mistake. It usually does not come like a storm that destroys everything overnight. Instead, it gets stolen, silently, slowly. Almost no one notices. By small habits that at first seem harmless. One day you say, I'll start tomorrow. Another day you think, just today taking a little break is fine. Then one more delay, one more excuse, a few more hours pulled into things that are not truly important. And before you realize it, those small habits have become the silent thieves of success. You see, most people think that to succeed, they need more things, more money, more opportunities, more talent. But after many years of observing people, I learned a different lesson. Success does not come only from what you add to your life. It also comes from what you do not allow to exist in your life. The habits you refuse, the standards you protect, the small things you decide not to tolerate anymore. In today's video, I want to share with you the most common habits that are silently stealing success from so many people. Some of them are easy to recognize, but a few other habits are far more dangerous because they are cleverly disguised under the names comfort, waiting for the right time, or just this once, and stay until the end of the video. Because habit number 12 may be the key that helps you change the entire direction of your life. Now, let's begin with the first silent thief of success. Habit 1, the habit of waiting. There is a very subtle thief that I have observed over many years of working with people. It is not loud. It does not break down the door of your life. It just stands there and whispers, "It's not time yet. You can start tomorrow. Wait until things are more ready." And if you are not careful, you will listen to it. I call it the habit of waiting. Procrastination. It does not say that you will never do it. It just says that you can do it later. But you see, in life there is a very interesting rule. Tomorrow rarely comes the way we imagine. One day passes, then 1 week, then 1 month, and what used to be a simple action suddenly becomes a mountain. I have met many people with big plans. One person wanted to start a business. One person wanted to write a book. One person wanted to change their health. They did not lack ideas. They did not lack ability. What they lacked was action the moment the opportunity appeared. They told me, "I'm just waiting for the right time." But I learned one thing from life. There is no perfect time. Life rarely arranges everything neatly for you. The market is not perfect. Time is not perfect. You are not perfect either. But action still has to begin. Because the truly dangerous thing about the habit of waiting is not just lost time. The more dangerous thing is lost momentum. Momentum is a very fragile thing. When you start taking action, something strange happens. Your energy rises. Ideas begin to appear. Confidence is built little by little. One step leads to the next. But when you stop, even for just a few days, starting again becomes much harder. You begin to doubt yourself. You begin to think, maybe I'm not ready yet. Maybe I need more preparation. And so the habit of waiting begins to become gravity pulling you down. I have seen two people start from the same position, the same idea, the same opportunity. One person says, "I'll try." The other says, "I'll start now." Years later, the distance between them is not in talent. It is in the speed of action. You see, success rarely belongs to the smartest person. It often belongs to the person who starts first. Because when you act, you learn. When you learn, you improve. And when you improve, you create an advantage. One more thing I want you to remember. Action does not only create results. Action creates belief. When you complete one small thing, you begin to believe that you can complete the next one. One task leads to another. One small win leads to a bigger win. But when you procrastinate, doubt begins to grow in the darkness of inaction. You begin to wonder whether you are capable enough. And the longer you wait, the more frightening the task becomes in your mind. That is how the habit of waiting steals so many dreams. Not because people lack ability, but because they wait too long to begin. So ask yourself one very simple question. What are you waiting for? A perfect moment? A certain sign? Absolute confidence? I have a small piece of news for you. Confidence rarely appears before action. It usually appears after you start. Most successful people I know were not people who were sure everything would work out. They were simply people willing to move forward even when the path was not completely clear. They understood that action creates progress. And progress creates belief. So today I want you to think about one thing. What in your life is being delayed right now? A project? An important conversation? A goal you said you would start? If the answer is yes, do not wait any longer. Because every day you delay is not just a day lost from your calendar. It is a day lost from your potential. Start small if necessary. One small step today is far better than a perfect plan tomorrow. Because once you start moving, you will realize one thing. The path becomes clearer when you walk on it. And that is how you defeat the first silent thief of success, the habit of waiting. But unfortunately, it is not the only thief. Because right after people stop waiting, another habit often appears to pull them back, a habit just as dangerous. The habit of excuses. And that is exactly the next habit we need to talk about. Habit 2, the habit of excuses. After a person starts slowing down because of the habit of waiting, another habit often appears to protect that delay. A very familiar habit, excuses. Excuses. We all know them. And if we are honest, we have all used them before. You can hear them in everyday conversations. I don't have enough time. I don't have the right conditions. I don't have support. The timing isn't right. Those statements sound very reasonable. In fact, they often sound so reasonable that it becomes dangerous, because an excuse is not a clear lie. It often contains part of the truth. Maybe your time really is limited. Maybe your circumstances are not perfect. Maybe your path is harder than someone else's. But the problem is not in the circumstances. The problem is in how we respond to the circumstances. I have met people who had many valid reasons to fail. They grew up in difficult environments. They had no money. They had no connections, but they still moved forward. And I've also met people who had every advantage. They had a good education, good opportunities, support, but they still stayed stuck. The difference was not in the circumstances. The difference was in the attitude toward responsibility. You see, every excuse has a price. Not a price that other people pay, but a price that you pay. Every time you say, "It's not my fault," you are also saying something else. And I also have no power to change it. That is the dangerous thing about excuses. They take away your power. Because if everything is the fault of circumstances, then you no longer have control. In many years of working with people, I realized a very clear rule. Successful people are not the ones with the fewest problems. They are the ones with the fewest excuses. When they face difficulty, they do not ask, "Who is responsible?" They ask, "What can I do next?" They shift their energy from explaining to acting. I remember one time a young man came to me. He said that he wanted to start a business, but he had a long list of reasons why he could not start yet. No capital, no experience, no connections. That list was very long. In fact, it was so long that I realized something. He had become very good at explaining why he could not do something. If he had spent that same energy looking for solutions, he probably would have started long ago. You see, excuses are like little stories we tell ourselves. Those stories help us feel more comfortable. They help us avoid the feeling of failure, but they also do something else. They keep us in the same place. There is a saying I really like. You can have reasons or you can have results, but you rarely get both. Reasons make you feel better in the present. Results make you proud in the future. And life usually forces you to choose one of the two. People who go far in life understand one very simple thing. They do not spend time building stories that explain why they are not successful. They spend time building strategies to move forward. Instead of saying, "I don't have time," they ask, "What in my day can change?" Instead of saying, "I don't have opportunities," they ask, "Where can I create an opportunity?" That is the difference between someone who reacts to life and someone who creates their life. And that difference begins with one very simple decision. Stop telling the old stories. Start writing new actions. So today I want you to think about one thing. What excuses are you repeating in your mind? Are you saying that you do not have time, no money, no opportunities? Maybe part of those things is true, but the more important question is, what will you do with that truth? Because when you accept responsibility, something powerful happens. You take back control. You stop looking at life as something that happens to you. You start looking at it as something you can shape. Responsibility is not a burden. It is power. It is the starting point of all change. And when you give up the habit of making excuses, you will realize something very interesting. Many obstacles that once seemed big were actually just problems that needed to be solved. But even after you overcome the habit of excuses, there is still another thief waiting. a very common thief in today's world, something that is pulling the attention of millions of people in hundreds of different directions. It does not come in the form of excuses, it comes in the form of distraction. And that is exactly the next habit that is silently stealing success from so many people. Habit 3, the habit of distraction. After a person overcomes the habit of waiting and stops making excuses for their delay, another challenge often appears. A challenge that in today's age is far more dangerous than before. That is distraction. Never in human history have people lived in a world so full of things pulling at their attention like today. A phone vibrates. A notification appears. A new piece of news. Another video. A short conversation. Each thing only takes a few minutes. But when you add all those minutes together, they can take away an entire day. And the dangerous thing about distraction is that it rarely looks like a serious problem. It looks like very small things. Just checking your phone for a bit. Just watching the news for a few minutes. Just replying to a quick message. Each individual action seems harmless. But when they repeat dozens of times a day, they shatter your focus into hundreds of little pieces. You see, success requires one thing that very few people are willing to protect: deep focus. When you truly focus on one thing, something special happens. Your mind becomes sharper, ideas begin to connect with each other, solutions appear faster. But that focus is very fragile. Just one small interruption, and it can take many minutes, sometimes many hours, to return to your best working state. I often tell people that your attention is like money in the bank. You have a limited amount every day. If you spend it on things that do not matter, do not be surprised when you do not have enough left to invest in the things that truly matter. A lot of people say they are very busy, but when you observe more closely, you realize one thing. They are not busy with things that create progress. They are busy with interruptions. A few minutes here, a few minutes there, checking email, scrolling through social media, replying to an unnecessary conversation. The whole day passes. They feel tired, but they do not feel like they have moved any farther. That is the trap of distraction. You feel like you are doing many things, but very few of them are truly moving you forward. I remember the early years when I was building my career. Distraction looked different back then. Maybe it was the radio. Maybe it was long conversations at coffee shops. Maybe it was unnecessary meetings. But the principle stayed the same. If you allow the world to pull your attention in every direction, you will never give enough energy to the direction that matters most. People who achieve something great in life understand one thing very clearly. They protect their focus. They learn how to say no. No to meaningless conversations. No to unnecessary interruptions. No to things that exist only to take up time. Not because they do not care about others, but because they understand that every time they say yes to distraction, they are saying no to their goal. Think about this. A person who is completely focused for 1 hour can accomplish more than a person who is distracted all day. Not because they are smarter, but because their energy is moving in one direction. You see, life is like a garden. What you water will grow. If you water the important things, goals, skills, meaningful work, they will grow. But if you water meaningless things, they will grow too. And very quickly, the weeds of distraction will fill your garden. That is why success is not only about doing the right things, it is also about ignoring many other things. People who go far in life are often not the ones who do the most things. They are the ones who ignore the most things. They choose a few important things and give most of their energy to them. So stop for a moment and ask yourself one very simple question. What are you giving your attention to every day? Are the things you are focusing on truly bringing you closer to your goals? Or are they just keeping you busy? Because every hour in the day is an investment. You are either investing in the future or you are spending it on temporary things. If you want to build something meaningful, you have to learn how to protect your attention. Turn off the noise when necessary, set boundaries when necessary, and create periods of time when your mind can work deeply. When you do that, you will realize something very interesting. You do not need more time. You just need less distraction. And that is how you defeat one of the biggest thieves of success in the modern world. But even if you have already gained control over your attention, there is still another habit that can silently destroy what you have built. A slower habit, a less obvious one, but no less dangerous. It is the habit of neglect. Habit 4, the habit of neglect. After a person begins to take action, overcomes procrastination, and learns how to protect their focus, there is still another habit that can quietly weaken everything. A habit that does not cause an immediate collapse. There is no warning sound, no dramatic moment. It simply appears little by little. I call it neglect. Neglect. You see, Most major crises in life do not begin with one big mistake. They begin with small things being ignored. One day you do not read. One day you do not review your goals. One day you skip taking care of your health. Nothing looks serious. It is just one day. But then one day becomes 1 week. 1 week becomes 1 month. And before you realize it, the foundations that once helped you move forward begin to weaken. I often say that life is like a structure. Each day, you lay one more brick. Those bricks may be the habit of learning, health, relationships, personal discipline. But when you begin to neglect those basics, you do not see the structure collapse immediately. It simply loses its strength little by little. One day you look back and ask yourself, why has everything become harder? Why do I feel like I'm falling behind? The answer is usually not one big mistake. It is hundreds of small moments of neglect. I have seen this happen in business many times. A person starts with great enthusiasm. They take care of customers carefully. They pay attention to detail. They keep learning constantly. But when the work begins to stabilize, they start to become careless. A few calls do not get returned. A few small details are overlooked. A few standards are relaxed. At first, nothing happens. But over time, customers begin to leave. Their reputation begins to decline, and they do not understand why. The truth is, success is rarely lost in one day. It is lost little by little through neglect. This is also true in personal life. A strong friendship does not disappear overnight. It disappears when calls are postponed, meetings are canceled, important conversations are ignored. A relationship that was once very close becomes distant, not because something big happened, but because the small things were no longer being cared for. Health is the same way. No one wakes up one morning and suddenly loses their health. It happens slowly. A rushed meal, a missed workout, one less hour of sleep. Each individual choice seems unimportant, but when they accumulate over time, they create a very different outcome. You see, life does not respond only to big decisions. It responds to the small habits repeated every day. That is why the basics always matter. Reading, learning, taking care of your health, keeping your promises, paying attention to detail. These things seem simple, but those simple things are the foundation of long-term progress. So I want you to ask yourself one very honest question. What have you been neglecting in your life? Have you stopped learning? Have you been ignoring your health? Have you let your goals drift into forgetfulness? Do not wait until a crisis appears to remind you, because when a crisis appears, it is usually just the final result of long-term neglect. The good news is that the solution to neglect is not complicated. It is simply returning to the basics. Open the book again. Write your goals again. Start taking care of the things that once helped you move forward. Small steps, when done every day, have the power to rebuild your foundation. And when you take care of what matters consistently, you will realize something very interesting. Life begins to feel more stable. Progress begins to appear again. But even if you avoid neglect, there is still another trap waiting. A trap that looks like a reward. A trap that makes many people think they have arrived, when in reality they are just beginning to slide downward. It is the habit of comfort. Habit 5. The habit of comfort. After a person has worked hard for a long time, they often encounter a very familiar feeling. That feeling says, you've done enough. You deserve a little rest. You can slow down. And sometimes that is completely true. Rest is necessary. Recovery is necessary. But there is a very thin line between resting to recover and living in comfort for too long. And when a person crosses that line, comfort begins to become a trap. I call it the habit of comfort. Comfort. You see, comfort is very attractive. It does not look like a problem. It looks like a reward. After you work hard, comfort tells you, you've made it. But in life, there is a truth that many people do not realize until it is too late. Success is not a state you reach once. It is a state you must maintain every day. The habits that helped you move forward are the very habits you need to stay there. I have seen many people build something they can be proud of. A business, a career, a good position in life. But after reaching a certain level of success, they begin to slow down. The habits that once helped them move forward begin to weaken. They no longer learn as much as before. They are no longer as disciplined as before. They no longer maintain high standards as before. At first, nothing changes. Life still seems fine. But over time, their sharpness begins to fade. That is the danger of comfort. It does not destroy you immediately. It simply slows your growth. And in a world that is always moving, slowing down for too long usually means falling behind. I often say that there are two voices in every person's mind. One voice says, "You've done enough, get some rest." The other voice asks, "How much better could you become?" The first voice seeks ease. The second voice seeks growth. There is nothing wrong with enjoying what you have achieved, but you must be careful not to turn satisfaction into stagnation, because when you stop growing, life rarely stands still and waits for you. I remember meeting an entrepreneur who had once been very successful. In the early years, he worked with incredible discipline. He read every day, learned from everyone around him, constantly improved his systems. But after his company began to grow well, he started spending less time learning, less time thinking strategically. He began relying on what had worked in the past. For a while, everything was still fine. But the world changed. The market changed. And by the time he realized it, younger competitors, more disciplined competitors, had moved ahead. Not because they were smarter, but because they kept the habits that helped them grow. You see, comfort often disguises itself as peace. It makes you feel that everything is fine. But real peace does not come from stopping. It comes from knowing that you are still making progress. You do not have to move faster every day, but you do have to keep moving forward. Think about this. If today you are a little better than yesterday, your life is moving in the right direction. But if today you are only repeating yesterday, and tomorrow is the same, then comfort may be quietly pulling you into a dangerous state. That state is drifting. No major crisis, no serious mistake, just growth coming to a stop. So I want you to ask yourself one question. Have you become too comfortable? Have you stopped challenging yourself? Have you stopped learning new things? Have you replaced discipline with easy habits? If the answer is yes, do not wait too long to change that. Because people who continue to grow in life understand one simple principle. They do not seek comfort, they seek progress. They understand that each day is an opportunity to become a little better. And when you live with that mindset, you do not just achieve success, you also maintain it. But even if you keep your discipline and avoid the trap of comfort, there is still another factor that can quietly affect your path, a factor far more powerful than many people think. That is the people around you. And that is exactly the next habit that can lift you up or pull you down. Habit 6, the habit of weak associations. There is a force of influence in life stronger than many people realize. It is not in your talent, not in your willpower. It is in the people you spend time with. I have observed this for many years. A person may begin with great ambition. They have clear goals. They want to build a better life. But over time, something very subtle begins to happen. The environment around them begins to shape their standards. You see, people have a natural tendency. We gradually become like the people we are closest to, not because we intentionally imitate them, but because the expectations of the environment become the new standard. If you spend most of your time with people who do not care about growth, very quickly you will notice that your ambition begins to weaken. Not in one day, but little by little. Big goals begin to sound too ambitious. Great effort begins to be seen as unnecessary. High standards begin to feel too hard. That is what I call association drift. The drift of environment. It does not happen through a clear declaration. No one says, "Today we are going to lower our standards." It simply happens through small conversations. The attitudes around you, the beliefs you hear repeated again and again. Gradually, the things that were once unacceptable become normal. I have seen this happen to many young people with great potential. They begin with discipline. They read, they learn, they work hard. But the environment around them does not share the same standards. Their friends laugh when they talk about big goals. They say, "Don't think too much, just enjoy life." At first, that young person still holds on to their beliefs. But over time, when you hear the same message repeated many times, it begins to affect the way you think. Not because you are weak, but because the environment has great power. I often say one very simple sentence. Environment is stronger than willpower. You may have very strong willpower, but if you spend enough time in a negative environment, it will gradually pull you down. The good news is that this is also true in the opposite direction. If you spend time with people who have high standards, something very interesting happens. Discipline becomes normal. Reading becomes normal. Talking about goals and plans becomes normal. You do not have to force yourself as much. The environment around you pulls you upward. I remember meeting a young entrepreneur with a lot of ambition, but the group of friends around him did not share that vision. They preferred light conversation. They were not interested in building anything big. After some time, he began to feel uncomfortable talking about his goals. Not because those goals had changed, but because the environment made him doubt himself. Then he began to change one thing. He sought out people who were building businesses, people who read, people who talked about ideas. After just a few months, his standards changed. Not because he learned some new secret, but because the new environment demanded more. You see, people often grow to the level of the standards around them. If your environment accepts mediocrity, it is very hard for you to pursue excellence. But if your environment expects progress, you will begin to live by that standard. This does not mean you have to cut off every relationship in your life. Not at all. But you do have to be careful about your primary environment. The people you spend the most time with, the conversations you join regularly, the beliefs you hear every day, because all of those things are shaping the person you are becoming. So ask yourself an important question. Are the people around you lifting you up or pulling you down? Do they encourage you to grow, or do they make you feel that trying harder is strange? The answer to that question may explain a lot about your path. Because when you choose the right environment, you do not just change what you do, you change what you believe is possible. But even if you are in a good environment, there is still another habit that can destroy your progress in just one moment. A habit connected to something all of us experience every day: emotions. And that is exactly the next habit you must learn to control. Habit 7, the habit of emotional reactivity. Even if you have clear goals, even if you work hard, and even if you are in a good environment, there is still one habit that can destroy your progress in just a few minutes. That habit has to do with how you respond to your emotions. I call it emotional reactivity. Emotional reactivity. You see, emotions are a natural part of being human. Everyone has moments of anger, disappointment, anxiety, or hurt. Those emotions are not the problem. The problem appears when emotions begin to control your actions. I have seen many talented people lose opportunities not because they lacked skill, but because they reacted too quickly to their emotions. One criticism made them angry. One small obstacle caused them to lose motivation. One delay made them give up. One emotional moment ruined months, even years of effort. That is the danger of emotional reactivity. It happens very fast. Before you have time to think, you have already said something you regret. You have already made a decision you did not truly want. You have already let one bad day ruin an entire week. I remember meeting a very intelligent business owner. He had good ideas, a good team, good opportunities, but he had one very dangerous habit. Whenever something did not go according to plan, he reacted immediately. If a customer complained, he got angry. If an employee made a mistake, he lost his composure. If the plan changed, he became stressed. What was the result? Not only did he feel exhausted, the people around him also began to leave, because they never knew which version of him they would meet that day, the calm version or the reactive version. After some time, he realized something important. The problem was not the world around him. The problem was how he reacted to that world. That was a major lesson. You cannot control everything that happens in life, but you can control how you respond. Successful people understand one very important thing. They do not let emotions decide their actions. They let principles decide their actions. That does not mean they do not have emotions. They just do not let emotions steer the ship. When something happens, they pause. They think. They ask, what response will best serve my goal? Just a small pause like that can completely change the outcome of a situation. Imagine two people facing the same problem. One reacts immediately. They get angry, say things they should not say, and damage relationships. The other pauses. They breathe. They think. They choose their response. After 1 year, the difference between those two people can be enormous. Not because they faced different circumstances, but because they responded differently. You see, emotional energy is very powerful. If you let it explode without control, it can destroy many good things. But if you learn how to manage it, it can become a source of strength. Instead of letting anger lead you to bad decisions, you can turn it into motivation to improve. Instead of letting disappointment make you quit, you can use it to learn. That is the difference between reacting and responding with intention. So, I want you to ask yourself one very important question. Are you reacting or are you choosing your response? Do you let emotions decide your actions? Or do you give yourself a pause to think before acting? The difference between those two approaches can change the entire direction of your life. Because when you learn to master your reactions, you begin to master your energy. And when you master your energy, you can direct it toward the things that truly matter. But even if you have learned how to control your emotions, there is still another habit that can slowly cause you to drift away from your goals. Not because you lack effort, not because you lack ability, but because you do not stop to look back at your path. And that is exactly the next habit that many people overlook. Habit 8, the habit of living without reflection. There is a very silent habit that many people never realize they have. They work hard. They stay busy every day. They handle many things. But they rarely do one very important thing. They do not stop to look back. I call that the habit of living without reflecting on your journey. Living without reflection. You see, many people believe that working hard is enough. They believe that if they stay busy, if they keep trying, if they spend many hours working, then progress will happen naturally. But after many years of observing, I realized a very clear difference. There are people who work hard, but after many years, their lives are still almost exactly the same. Then there are others who not only work hard, but also learn from what they have done. And that is what creates the difference. You see, success does not come only from action. It comes from action plus adjustment. Like a person flying an airplane, a pilot does not just take off and fly straight. Throughout the flight, they constantly check the instruments. They adjust the direction. They change altitude when needed. If they do not do that, the plane can drift off course without them even realizing it. Life is the same way. If you do not stop to see where you are going, you may work very hard and still go in the wrong direction. I have met people who told me they had worked for 10 years. But when they look back, they realize they were still almost in the same place. Not because they did not try, but because they never checked their path. They kept repeating the old habits, repeating the old mistakes, repeating the old decisions. And when you repeat the same actions, you usually get the same results. People who progress faster in life have one very simple habit. They review their week. They ask, what worked well? What did not work? What can I do better next week? Those questions seem very simple, but they carry great power. Because every time you review your journey, you are giving yourself a chance to adjust your direction. One small change today can keep you from going the wrong way for many years. I remember meeting a manager who worked very hard. He worked many hours each week, but after some time, he realized that his team kept facing the same problems, the same mistakes, the same difficulties. One day, he decided to do one thing differently. At the end of each week, he spent 1 hour reviewing the work week. He wrote down what had happened, what decisions had been made, what results had been achieved. After a few months, something interesting happened. He began to notice repeated patterns, mistakes he had not seen before, opportunities he had previously missed. Just by taking time to observe himself, he improved greatly. You see, life rewards people who not only work hard, but also learn from their own actions. Reflection is not regret. It is not sitting down and blaming yourself. It is learning. It is looking back at what happened with honesty. No excuses, no blame, just learning. When you do that regularly, you begin to improve faster. You spot mistakes earlier. You adjust direction faster. And over time, those small adjustments create a very big difference. So I want you to ask yourself one question. When was the last time you truly reviewed your life? Do you take time to look back at your week? Do you examine your habits? Do you ask yourself what needs to change? If not, you may be letting life drift by without realizing it. The good news is that the habit of reflection is easy to start. You do not need much time. Just a few minutes at the end of the week. Just a small notebook. Just a few honest questions. But those minutes can help you avoid mistakes that last for years. And when you begin looking back at your life with intention, you will realize something very important. Not every bad habit can disappear just by trying to stop it. Because if you only remove one habit, it is very likely that another habit will return to replace it. And that is exactly why we need to talk about the next habit, a very important principle for changing your life. Habit 9, the habit of low standards. There is something very interesting that I realized after many years of observing people. Very few people begin their lives intending to live an average life. Most people have dreams. They want to build something. They want to achieve something. They want to become a better version of themselves. But over time, something very subtle begins to happen. Their standards begin to lower. Not in one day, not in one big decision, but little by little. I call it the habit of low standards. Low standards. You see, life rarely forces you to live at an average level. Most of the time, we allow that to happen ourselves. One day you say, that's good enough. Another day you think, everyone else does it too. And gradually, good enough begins to replace the best possible. That is how a person's standards begin to fall. You can see this in many areas. A student who used to work very hard begins to study less. An entrepreneur who used to pay attention to every detail begins to ignore small things. A person who used to exercise regularly begins to skip a few workouts. Nothing looks too serious. But over time, those small choices begin to change the person you become. I often say one very simple sentence. Your life rarely rises above the standard you accept. If your standards are low, your results will also be low. If your standards are high, you will begin to act in ways that match those standards. I remember meeting a very successful sales manager. One day I asked him a simple question. Why does your team achieve much better results than so many other teams? He gave a very interesting answer. He said, we just do not accept the things other teams consider normal. On his team, showing up late was not normal. Being unprepared was not normal. Failing to meet goals was not normal. Not because they were perfect, but because their standards were different. You see, your standards work like a filter. They affect what you accept, what you ignore, and what you demand from yourself. If your standard is do just enough, you will always look for a way to do as little as possible. But if your standard is do the best possible, you will act very differently. You will prepare more carefully. You will learn more. You will pay attention to details that others ignore. Over time, those small differences create very large results. People who achieve something meaningful in life are often not the ones with the greatest talent. They are the ones who refuse to accept low standards. They are not satisfied with doing just enough. They want to do better, not to impress others, but because they have an internal standard, a commitment to themselves that they will try to become the best version of who they are. So I want you to ask yourself one very important question. What are you accepting in your life? Are you accepting procrastination? Are you accepting bad habits? Are you accepting a lower level of effort than what you are truly capable of? If the answer is yes, maybe it is time to raise your standards. You do not need to change everything in one day, but start with small things. Prepare a little better. Work a little more focused. Take care of your health a little better. Small changes in personal standards can change the entire direction of your life. Because when you raise your standards, your actions will begin to change. And when your actions change, your results will change too. But even if you have raised your standards, there is still another habit that can make you lose progress. A habit many people do not even realize. They have high standards. They have big goals. But they do not maintain discipline consistently. And that is exactly the next habit that can determine whether you move forward or stay still. Habit 10, the habit of inconsistent discipline. There is one thing I have learned after many years of observing people. Most people do not fail because they do not know what to do. In fact, many people know exactly what is right. They know that they should read more. They know that they should take care of their health. They know that they should work with more focus. Knowledge is not the problem. The problem is consistency. I call it the habit of inconsistent discipline. Inconsistent discipline. You see, many people have very powerful moments. One day they feel highly motivated. They make a new plan. They set new goals. They start a new habit. For the first few days, they do very well. They wake up early. They work hard. They feel that their life is changing. But after some time, that rhythm begins to weaken. One day they skip their habit. The next day they say, it's okay, I'll start again tomorrow. Then another day passes. And very quickly, the new habit they started with so much enthusiasm begins to disappear. You see, success rarely comes from explosive moments. It comes from small actions repeated every day. A person who reads for 1 hour every day for many years will learn far more than someone who reads for 10 hours in one day and then neglects it for many months. A person who exercises for 30 minutes every day will be much healthier than someone who trains very hard for 1 week and then stops. That is the power of consistency. Small steps, when repeated long enough, can create very big changes. But the habit of inconsistent discipline does the opposite. It breaks the chain of progress. Every time you stop for too long, you have to start again almost from the beginning. I often tell people that discipline is not about doing big things. Discipline is doing small things, even when you do not feel like doing them. That is the difference. Anyone can work hard when they feel motivated. But the people who truly go far in life, they keep going even when the motivation is gone. They understand that their emotions will change every day, but their commitment will not. I remember meeting a very successful author. One day I asked him, how do you manage to write so many books? He smiled and said something very simple. I don't wait for inspiration. I just write every day. Some days he wrote very well. Some days he did not write very well, but he still wrote. After many years, those small pages became great books. That is the power of consistency. You see, when you do something every day, it begins to become part of who you are. You do not have to think too much about it. It simply becomes what you do. But when you do something only once in a while, it always feels hard to begin again. So I want you to ask yourself one question. Is there something in your life that is lacking consistency? Have you started good habits and then abandoned them? Do you work hard only when you feel motivated? If the answer is yes, do not try to change everything at once. Start with one small thing, one simple habit, and most importantly, do it every day. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. Over time, those small actions will accumulate, and one day you will look back and realize that your life has changed a great deal. Not because of one big decision, but because of hundreds of small actions repeated faithfully. But even if you have discipline, and even if you maintain consistency, there is still another habit that can slowly cause you to drift away from your goals. A habit that many people lose when life becomes busy. It is the habit of forgetting your vision. Habit 11, the habit of forgetting your vision. There is something very interesting that I realized after many years of speaking with thousands of people. Many people begin their journey with a very clear vision. They know what they want to build. They know who they want to become. They have a clear picture of the future they are moving toward. In the early days, that vision is very strong. It makes them wake up earlier. It makes them work harder. It makes them willing to overcome difficulties. But over time, something very subtle begins to happen. Life becomes busy. Daily tasks appear. Small problems need to be solved. New responsibilities require attention. And gradually, the big vision that once guided them begins to fade. I call it the habit of forgetting your vision. Forgetting your vision. You see, many people do not lose their goal in one day. They lose it little by little. One day, they are too busy to think about it. 1 week, they do not mention it. 1 month, they do not review their plan. And before they realize it, their life is being guided by urgent things, not important things. That is the danger of a busy life. You may feel that you are doing many things, but if those things are not connected to your vision, you may stay busy for many years without truly getting closer to where you want to go. I remember meeting a manager who worked very hard. He worked from morning until night. His schedule was always full. Meetings, emails, problems to solve. One day I asked him a very simple question. What is your long-term vision? He was silent for a moment. Not because he did not have a vision, but because he had not thought about it for a very long time. He had become so caught up in daily tasks that he forgot why he had started his journey in the first place. You see, vision is like a lighthouse. It helps you know where you are going. When you see that lighthouse often, you can adjust your direction. But when you stop looking at it, you may begin to drift without realizing it. That is why people who go far in life often have one very simple habit. They constantly remind themselves of their vision. They write it down. They review their goals. They think about where they want to go. Not once a year, but regularly. Because when you keep your vision in front of you, your daily decisions begin to change. You begin to ask different questions. Is this bringing me closer to my goal? Is this habit helping me become the person I want to become? Those questions help keep your life moving in the right direction. Without a clear vision, it is very easy to be pulled by what is right in front of you. Urgent tasks, distractions, other people's demands. And when that happens for a long time, you may wake up one day and ask yourself, why has my life gone in this direction? The answer is often very simple. You stop looking at your vision. So I want you to ask yourself one very important question. Do you still clearly remember your vision? Do you know what you are trying to build over the next 5 years? Do you still feel excited when you think about your future? If the answer is no, perhaps it is time to return to it. Write your vision on paper. Think about the life you want to build. Remind yourself every day where you are going. Because when your vision is clear, your daily choices become clearer. And when you keep that vision in your mind, you are less likely to drift away from your path. But even if you have avoided all the previous habits, there is still one final principle. A very important principle if you truly want to change your life. Because to remove a bad habit, simply trying to stop is not enough. You must do something else. You must replace it with a better habit. And that is exactly the final habit we are going to talk about. Habit 12, the habit of not replacing bad habits. There is a very common mistake that many people make when they decide to change their lives. They think that change is simply about stopping bad things. Stop procrastinating. Stop wasting time. Stop bad habits. That idea sounds reasonable, but after many years of observing people, I realized something very important. You cannot simply eliminate a habit. You must replace it, because the human mind does not like empty space. If you try to simply stop a behavior, there is a strong chance that behavior will return, or another habit that is also not good will appear to fill that empty space. I call this the replacement rule. Replacement rule. Think about this. If you want to stop procrastinating, you cannot just tell yourself, I won't procrastinate anymore. You must replace procrastination with planned action. You must make a schedule. You must begin with small steps. Otherwise, those empty stretches of time will quickly be filled by old habits. If you want to stop distraction, you cannot just try not to check your phone. You must replace distraction with clear periods of focus. You must create an environment that helps you work deeply. If you want to stop making excuses, you cannot just say, I won't make excuses anymore. You must replace it with responsibility. You must ask, what can I do next? That is how real change begins. Not by removing a behavior, but by planting a new behavior. I often use a very simple image. Imagine your life is like a garden. If you only pull out the weeds, but do not plant flowers, the weeds will quickly grow back. But if you plant flowers and take care of them every day, gradually they will take over the space. The weeds will have no room left to grow. Habits are the same way. You do not just eliminate bad habits. You replace them with better ones. A person who used to waste time begins to use that time to learn. A person who used to procrastinate begins to take one small step every day. A person who used to complain begins to look for solutions. Over time, those new habits begin to change who you are. You are no longer the old person. You become someone different. A person with more discipline. A person with clearer goals. A person who is more proactive with their life. And the beautiful thing is that change does not have to begin with giant steps. It can begin with very small changes. Instead of scrolling on your phone for one more hour, you read a few pages of a book. Instead of delaying a task, you do the first step of it. Instead of complaining about a problem, you write down one solution. Those small changes, when repeated every day, will begin to build an entirely different life. So I want you to ask yourself one final question. What habit in your life needs to be replaced? Is there something you know is stealing your potential? If so, do not just try to eliminate it. Replace it. Because when you fill your life with good habits, the silent thieves of success will have no room left to exist. And that is when something very interesting happens. Success is no longer a distant goal. It begins to become the natural result of the way you live each day. You and I both have the same precious asset. That is each new day. Every day gives you an opportunity to build the life you desire. But as we said today, life is not shaped only by big decisions. It is shaped by small habits repeated every day. The habits you allow, the standards you accept, the choices you make when no one is watching. If you can recognize the habits that are silently stealing your success and begin replacing them with better habits, your life can change more than you think. Not in one day, but over time. So I want to ask you one question. Out of the 12 habits today, which one did you recognize in your own life? Share it in the comments section. And if you want to keep learning principles that help you grow every day, press subscribe so you do not miss the next lessons. Remember this. If you can master your habits, you can master your life. And I will see you in the next video.